What's up, guys? Season 2, Episode 8 of the New Guys podcast. We're here every week. Once again, we're short staffed. Graham has some schoolwork to do, some stuff to take care of. I've been there. Pat's been there. We all get it. Things come up. We're just going to keep rolling, though. Graham's actually in this call right now, but he's just on mute and everything, so you're not going to be seeing anything of him today. But we actually do have a lot to talk about. We're going to try and change up the form a little bit. I know we've been kind of maybe boring you guys with the weekly picks like every single week and breaking down every single game. I get it. If you want to see more of that, that's going to be on our Instagram and the Ride the Wave Media Instagram. All the handles are down below, our personal handles, Graham included. So, let's jump into week 6. Let's break it down a little bit, but not as crazy as we usually do. Let's start with some winners and losers. I'm going to go ahead and say one of the biggest winners from this week is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially their defense. I think after week 5, when they were not easily mauled, but after that loss to Chicago, letting up 20 points to Chicago and letting Nick Foles pretty much carve up that defense, even though the score really didn't say that he carved them up like that, we all pretty much read him off. Like, oh, if we even said it last week. If Nick Foles could easily take out this Tampa Bay defense, then Aaron Rodgers, oh my God, it's going to look like nothing. It's going to look like I can do it the way Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to do it. But Tampa Bay ended up taking, I think they had 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 going back for a touchdown. And they held Aaron Rodgers to 10 points. And we're going to go into like our top dogs in the AFC and NFC later. But this really hurts the Packers stock in terms of being a top dog in the NFC. I think Tampa Bay is up there now. We talked about their growing pains earlier this year after the losses to New Orleans and obviously Chicago. They're going to have growing pains, and it looks like they're finally starting to come out. Oh, there goes my mic. They're finally starting to come out of that shell, like they're starting to, I don't know, almost like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. They're doing their thing right now. They're starting to blossom finally. Things are starting to click. Ground caught a touchdown finally. That's something many people thought was going to happen very early on. They thought there were going to be multiple, but here we are going into week 7, and Gronk just caught his first. So Tampa Bay proved a lot of people wrong this weekend. They shouldn't be taken lightly at all.
Yeah. I'll jump into mine. I mean, just to go off what Anthony said, I mean, I think it's, like you said, it's more towards, I know the Packers stock is definitely down now, but I think it's more towards the elite play of the defense than it is towards Rodgers. I mean, he didn't look good, but I think people are overreacting a bit about how Rodgers played. I think he finished with somewhere around 35% completion. It was a bad game without a doubt, but like you said, that Bears game kind of put like a false sense of hope into some people's minds of like this Bucs defense isn't that good. And then Vita Vea obviously going down, people were doubting whether they could really come back, but evidently they could. So I'd agree with you on that. Probably my biggest winner of the season so far has got to be the Titans, and it's hard to admit this because I was a huge doubter of them, as were I think a couple of us, at least
Especially this
Pat.
week with the Titans.
Yeah, I think Graham is the only one who really took him seriously at the beginning of the season. But I mean, this past game was such a big win for them. I mean, they were down, that drive by Tannehill in the final seconds to fade to A.J. Brown, push it to OT. And then obviously Derrick Henry just mauling the Texans defense for 200 yards in that direct snap to end it in OT. But I mean, they've now beaten, they beat the Vikings who can put up points. They beat the Bills, who are obviously a great team. The Jags, they beat the Broncos when Drew Lock was there, when they were fully healthy. They've beaten some good teams now. Obviously, their toughest test comes up this week against the Steelers. And I still hesitate to say whether they're the best team in the AFC, but they've overshot my expectations by a long shot. Tannehill looks great. And Derrick Henry, is there really a debate to say he's the best running back in the league now? I don't think so. I mean, maybe him or Kamara, but at this point, if you're talking about, you need a running back in a Super Bowl game, one game, wins it all, I'm taking Derrick Henry. He plows through any defensive line, and he's just crazy to watch. So I'm going with the Titans for my winner.
Yeah, I gotta agree with both you guys there. On the Packers front, I think definitely their injuries to their offensive line hurt Aaron Rodgers. He was running around all game, and we all know that Buccaneers front seven really isn't anything to mess around with. So I think in that front, definitely the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a winner, taking down a team and MVP hopeful Aaron Rodgers. And in terms of what you said, Jordan, about the Titans, I gotta agree. I've been a big doubter of Ryan Tannehill for a long time, especially since he was on the Dolphins before. Maybe it's just some
Adam
bad
Gase.
divisional blood there.
All I'm going to say. Adam Gase held him back.
I believe it, but at the same time, the Titans just continue to prove people wrong, and they have some injuries now. They're dealing with Taylor Lewan going down, definitely hurts, but they got a gutsy win out over this Houston Texans team that is pretty talented. So you guys actually happened to take my top 2 picks for when it was the week, but luckily I have a third one.
There we
And
go.
this third one actually goes to Jimmy G and the San Francisco 49ers.
They were my third.
Who got a huge win over the Rams, who have been pretty good this year. They've stayed competitive with some very good teams, such as Buffalo over in the AFC. But I think the Niners, if they lost, they would have fallen to 2-4. That's a really hard really hard record rather, to recover from. I think they put themselves in the thick of the wild card race with this win. Jimmy G showed that he can still be that franchise guy. I believe he threw for 300-something yards, 3 touchdowns, and we all know his supporting cast isn't the best.
268 and 3 touchdowns.
Oh,
3 touchdowns. My fault.
But still, it's a good win over a good team. And it definitely makes that division race interesting with the Cardinals also picking up a win this week. I believe they're all within a game of each other, the Rams, Cardinals, and 49ers. Obviously, no one's catching the Seahawks, but that's my winner of the week.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback over off of what both of you guys said. The Niners are only going to get better now. They got guys coming back from injury. Yeah, a loss like Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa for the year is going to blow big time. They're really not going to be the same. That pass rush is not going to be the same without him. I think he's the forefront of that defense. So they're not really going to recover from that, but they're getting a lot of guys back. And it looks like Jimmy G's back in a stride. I don't think there's really any quarterback controversy there in San Francisco, so I wouldn't worry too much. They got a big game against New England this week. We're going to get into that a little later. And I remember in the beginning of the season, we were bashing on not really bashing on Derrick Henry, that he was a second half of the season guy.
That was Graham. Graham really hit on Derrick Henry.
That was one of us. I remember we were talking about that.
That's ironic.
I know he's not here to defend himself, but I know he'd admit that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for real. And Derrick Henry is doing his thing now. 212 yards, 2 touchdowns in the last game against the Texans. One of them being that crazy 94-yard run. Mm-hmm. And I think he's top 3, or he might be leading the league in rushing yards right now.
He's leading the league right now.
Yeah. He's leading the league.
Quick, Anthony. His past 16 games, to piggyback off what you're saying, he has over 2,000 yards rushing. He has 6.0 yards per carry, and he has 20 total touchdowns. So over the past year, there has not been a better running back in football.
I mean, how many times has a running back rushed for 2,000 yards? It's got to be like a handful. I mean, that doesn't happen.
6, I think. 6 people have done
it. And those are top guys. I mean, those are the APs, whoever
Chris Johnson, Jamal Lewis,
LTs. Yeah, I mean, you're talking like the elite of the elite, but
right.
I mean, that's crazy. If he can,
I mean, what you're saying, Anthony, yeah, he's definitely taken that next step. He's transcended like a flash in the pan kind of thing, like a really good running back, and he's come into like that unstoppable territory. Like, who the hell's going to stop this guy?
Yeah, and this wasn't a lot of guys were writing him off. Like, oh, he's a draft bust. He's a waste of a Heisman Trophy winner. Mm-hmm. And now he's finally, I think that last year was his year to finally blossom, and break out as that number 1 running back. And he did just that, and he absolutely ran away with it. No pun intended. So on that fact, let's go to our losers for this week. And I'm going to start this one off. The Cleveland frickin' Browns, man. You guys want to talk pretenders? The Cleveland Browns are the pretenders of all pretenders.
You're going to have Graham fuming.
I don't care about Graham. He's not here. I'll take it from him later. But like we said earlier in last week before the Steelers and Browns game, I had this one marked down as my game of the week. Not really game of the week with that Tampa Bay game, but this was right behind there. This is one that I really wanted to watch. And it ended up being a 38-7 Pittsburgh win. Like, that game was not enjoyable. I know Jordan's smirking over there because he lone wolfed the Steelers, I believe. I don't remember who Pat picked. But, yeah, I thought this was the game for the Browns to say, hey, we're here. Like, don't count us out. And we even said this game is going to come down to whichever quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes. Baker Mayfield's got to show up. Mm-hmm. And what did Baker Mayfield do? He didn't show up. He ended up only throwing for 119 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Yeah, I'm looking down at paper. I don't just have this shit memorized. But
hey, the Spotify listeners didn't know that, and now you just gave it away.
I don't care. I'm an honest man. But Odell wasn't productive at all either. He only had like 4 catches for 25 yards or something like that. That I remember. That I didn't write down. I just wrote OBJ not productive. But this Browns team really has to kind of step up in a way. These mistakes have to stop on offense. Mm-hmm. And the way they were able to be torched by Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers offense, it's really alerting. So after one game, it might be harsh to say the Browns are pretenders, but the Browns do this every year. It's the Baker Mayfield cycle that he just kind of goes like, "Oh, I'm going to prove everyone wrong." He beats a team that I saw a meme about this. I'm just reciting that. I'm not clever or anything, but I remember seeing a meme. It was like, "Oh, Baker Mayfield, he has this underdog mentality, and then he beats up on a team that's worse than the Browns, and then he gets his real test against a real team, and he absolutely shits the bed." So Browns are pretenders as of right now. After that game, I don't have much faith in them because it's going to be really tough to beat a team like my Raiders. So we're going to see moving forward. They play later down the line.
Man,
I'm gonna have to stay.
Put the Raiders in there like
I know you tried to slip that hometown Raiders thing in there, like we weren't gonna notice, but that's fine. I'm gonna have to stay home on this one and go with the Patriots, New England Patriots, as the loser this week. I think everyone. I mean, we had a sweep on our picks. We all thought that they were gonna win. I don't think there was any bias involved either. Honestly, we always promote that unbiased reactions and analysis.
Usually.
But to be honest, I mean, everyone was picking the Patriots. I mean, anyone in their right mind, and for Drew Lock to be coming off of his injury. Then not to have Melvin Gordon. They obviously lost Cortland Sutton earlier on in the season. I mean, this is a weak Broncos team. This team's not making the playoffs. And we got absolutely embarrassed, only putting up 12 points. Newton threw for somewhere around 150 yards, I think. I mean, it was nothing special from either side of the ball. And I think what's scariest to me is that Philip Lindsay tore our defensive line up.
Oh, yeah, it's bad.
And considering, you look at the rest of our, schedule and some of the big guys that you have on that list.
San Francisco next week, who is a run-based offense of guys like Raheem Mostert. That scares me.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he got placed on IR, so I don't think he'll be there. But
McKinnon is still not.
I think he's coming back. I think he's coming back
over.
soon, and I thought I could have sworn he was coming back this week.
Well, according to fantasy, he's questionable for next week. But regardless, go ahead, dude.
But like you guys said, like some of the guys you look at our schedule, the guys we're gonna have to face. We've got the Seahawks later on in the season, and or no, we don't. We don't have the Seahawks later on in the season.
Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore. Who was I thinking of? I don't know. We've got some tough matchups. I know that. And
maybe Baltimore.
Some tough running backs. Yeah. And so I think our run, we're gonna have trouble with the run game, considering Philip Lindsay just tore us up, and he's not. I mean, he's good, but he's not great. So I got to go with New England on this one. We'll go more in depth about it later on in the podcast, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jordan, I definitely agree with New England there, and we'll get more in depth on that later. In terms of Cleveland, Anthony, I'm going to blame one person for Cleveland's shortcomings, and that's Baker Mayfield. I think I don't know what happened to him. His rookie year, he was pretty good. He 27 touchdowns, 14 picks. That's, a very good stat line for a rookie, generally speaking, and he's really just regressed every single year he's been in the league. I don't know if it's the coaching staff or what, or like the scheme that's messing him up. But that team is going to live and die by his arm, and they're dying by his arm right now. Also, a quick shout out to the Steelers defensive special teams. They got me 19 fantasy points last week.
Fuck you.
Huge. But that was not in the game that I beat Jordan by, I think, 40, I think. By the way.
Yeah. Okay. Whoa. Kenyon Drake meant that game close.
He did.
No, he didn't. It used to be my 20.
Closer. But my loser of the week has got to be the Cowboys. We all know Dak Prescott went down last week with a terrible injury, but I think a lot of people, including myself, expected Andy Dalton to be able to pick up some of the slack with that insane receiving core and running back stable that they have down there in Dallas, but he didn't. They got walloped by the Cardinals 38-10, and Kyler Murray, I don't even think he completed 10 passes. So the Cowboys just stay losing. Their defense is on pace to put up the most points in NFL history by 50, which is just gives you an idea of how terrible it is. But Andy Dalton really just disappointed me. I think that whole coaching staff, there's some stuff going on down there now where players are calling out the coaching staff for not preparing for games well enough, and I think that showed in their turnover-prone offense this past Sunday. Or Monday, rather. I got to go with the Cowboys. I think it's just terrible, but they're still in first place in their division somehow.
Yeah, that's
NFC East might be a bigger loser than the Cowboys. It's just terrible.
That's the one good thing they've going for them, that they're in easily.
It's like make playoffs at like 4-12.
And it's to compare. It's like the AFC without the Patriots for 15 years. I mean,
Mhm.
like you have like the Bills and the Jets who were good some years, maybe pushing 500. The Jets were, good enough some years at like 9-7, but you had no teams there was no top dog.
Right.
So I mean, that's one thing they have going for them. And just the last thing I wanted to say is like a lot of people thought Andy Dalton was going to be able to carry this Dallas team. Like maybe he doesn't have a good offensive line. Like give him a good offensive line, he can do something. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not against Cardinals defense isn't even that good. So
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. But I'm gonna get into the Pats later, Jordan, when we talk about when we have our segment for them. But the Cowboys, man, it's gonna be tough for them to win if Ezekiel Elliott keeps playing the way he does, because
Terrible.
the way he's fumbling left and right. I don't know if it, like they said on Monday Night Football, is it a mental thing for him that he thinks he's got to carry this team on his back? Because you think America's team, you think the Cowboys. Who are the guys you think of all the time? Not like the people who are into it and invested in it like us. You think, oh, Amari Cooper, you got this guy, you got that guy. But casual fans are going to know Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. And that order can always switch. So with Dak Prescott down, maybe Elliott's got this mental block. Oh, I got to carry this team. I got to put this team on my back. If we're going to win, I have to be running for 200 yards every game and 2-3 touchdowns. So as of right now, it might be a mental thing. I'm sure the Cowboys were in no physical shape or mental shape to play this week at all or practice it after Dak Prescott's injury. I'm sure they were all grieving. So I'm not one to count the Cowboys out just yet because of that, but I think they're going to rally behind this. So going off of that, we're going to get into what teams we think have really surprised us this year. And I'm not really going to get into mine because I kind of touched on them already. The Cleveland Browns, man. I thought they were going to be so much better. They were a team I honestly forgot about. And then they're still 4-2, I believe, but they're a team that just looks like they're ready to go downhill and going into week 7. And with a loaded team like that, it's kind of scary to think because you got guys like Odell that are going to want to be out of there as soon as possible if they don't make the playoffs this year, because that's the reason he left
Free
the Giants.
my man. Bring him to New England.
Or Julio. I'd rather have Julio at this point just because I think Julio is much more talented. But that's my Julio Jones bias. Like we said, usually unbiased analysis. So yeah, I really touched on the Browns before. Like they surprised me in the fact that they're just not as good this year as I thought. Yeah, they're 4-2, but you can just tell they're going downhill. So
true.
I'm really surprised about the Browns this year, honestly.
Jordan, after you. The picking king. I actually I don't know what the standings are on the picks right now because Graham's not here to keep track.
I am thinking that I don't remember. I lone wolfed on the Steelers, so I definitely got one above you guys on that one. But I can't think if I lone wolfed on any other ones. So we'll see. We'll get the
count it up.
Yeah, we'll get the results. I gotta really think about this. I didn't have it set.
He wasn't prepared.
No. Biggest surprise. I'm gonna go with the Chicago Bears. I think.
I could agree with that.
I think I've actually been like a pretty big praiser of the Bears. I think I've picked them like a lot. Oh, I may have picked them every single week, honestly, because I picked them last week against Tampa. So, but I don't know. People are really low on them. I know Nick Foles didn't look great a couple weeks ago, but in his first game, his debut, he looked fantastic. Obviously, making that comeback, and then last week he was good enough to beat Tom Brady. So, and their defense is not back to where it was 2 years ago, but it's much better than it was last year. And if they can keep the offense at least at level above water and not start drowning with Nick Foles behind center, and their defense is good enough to keep them in games, I think. So the Bears were projected to finish somewhere in the bottom of the NFC with Trubisky. No one really thought anything was gonna happen with them, and now maybe they sneak into the playoffs. Who knows? Obviously there's still a lot of
at this pace they obviously can slip into the playoffs, but
yeah, exactly.
I'm not too high on them.
Yeah, I know, and I think people are going to regret that come week 16 when they're in.
All right, hot take, but I believe it as well. I got to go with a team that I have been doubting since they beat us last year in the divisional round. I got to go with the Titans. I really
wild
thought.
Card round.
What would you say?
Wild card rounds. Don't forget that they beat us in the wild card.
Yeah.
Hey, it shouldn't have been a wild card round because you know why? N'Keal Harry's foot was in that Kansas City game. But we'll get into that another time. The Titans, I think, have just really surprised everybody. Not so much like the Derrick Henry front. I think it's more on the Ryan Tannehill front. I was and still kind of am a Ryan Tannehill hater. I don't think he's legit. I don't think he's worth that money. But he's backed it up this season. The way he's played, he's been playing phenomenal. He's really inserted himself in that MVP race. I think he's a top 3 MVP candidate at this time. With the way that they're playing right now, especially how they handled that COVID situation. I really thought that they were going to fall off after that, but they didn't. So I got to pick the Titans. I think they're really clicking once their defense can maybe figure something out, especially their secondary. I think they'll be able to become a bit more of a wagon, like a more serious contender. But for the time being, I think that they've been, at least for me, one of the most surprising teams. I think they're going to take that AFC South division pretty easily. I don't really think Philip Rivers is going to pose much of a threat to them. So I got to go with Tennessee. And I credit a lot of that to Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel is a fantastic coach.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember when the Titans went to the playoffs a few years ago. I forget who the coach was, but they fired him after losing in the wild card round. Everyone was like, why the hell would you fire your coach after he brought you to the playoffs after X amount of years? And maybe Mike Vrabel was in mind and they knew, but hey, credit to the Tennessee Titans. You gotta tip your hat to them.
Yeah.
So moving from the AFC, we're gonna move on to the NFC here. I think the biggest matchup this week that everyone was looking forward to was the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady, two of the top 10 greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. Oh, and we all know that.
Top 5.
That's a bit of a hot take, but I think most people could agree that they're both in the top 10. Brady being number 1, obviously. But this is a game that really shifted the momentum in the NFC playoff push because there were a lot of people going into this game writing off Tampa Bay and thinking that Green Bay was the top dog in the NFC. Not me. I always knew Seattle was the top dog. I still think Seattle is the top dog in the NFC. I feel like they're just the most complete team as of right now. But Tampa Bay shocked a lot of people, obviously, beating them up 38-10. So I want to know what you guys think. After watching this game, who is the real top dog in the NFC? And it doesn't have to be Tampa Bay or Green Bay.
I'll take it. I got to say it's Seattle still. Out of Green Bay and Tampa Bay, I think I've said this before. I think Tampa Bay is a team that's just going to get better as the season goes on. And for Green Bay, I think they're a team that they're great, and obviously Aaron Rodgers can really propel any team to greatness. But at the same time, when their flaws show, I feel like they really show. It tends to be their defense. Their defense tends to let them down, but this time it was their defense and their offensive line. I think that Green Bay is a team that without making a couple moves, they're not going to be a serious contender. They're not going to be able to get over some of the teams that are more complete, such as Tampa Bay or Seattle. Even some other less serious teams. I'm trying to think of another NFC team right now. Maybe even like the Saints or something like that. Chicago is actually leading the division right now, oddly enough. But I think it's got to be Seattle until somebody knocks them off. They're the top dog in the league. At the level Russell Wilson's playing, that defense is not doing too bad either. I think it has to be them.
So are we just doing NFC here, or is this just overall?
We're going to go to the NFC right now. We'll go into the AFC in the next segment.
Okay, so I'll agree with you guys.
There, but
yeah, okay, I'll keep it short. I mean, I agree with you guys, Seahawks. I didn't really think the Packers were in the same league as the Seahawks even before their loss. I think that that offense right now in Seattle's, outstanding, obviously. And they have so many weapons. Their offense is better, and although their defense is subject to a lot of yards getting put up on them in any given game, I still almost might give the advantage in general overall to the Seahawks because their run defense is very good. Because I don't think the Packers are anything special on the defensive end either. Evidently, they just got mopped by Brady, so they're definitely not in the above average category. I would consider them below average. But yeah, I mean, I think the Seahawks have deserved it. Until they lose that title, or lose a game, I should say, I think they keep that title.
Yeah, and I want to go on this Packers defense for a little bit because guys like Zadarius Smith and Jaire Alexander have really been leading this team, especially Alexander. Zadarius Smith, I just drew a blank for 1 second. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, the way he's been able to wreak havoc this year, I think he's really showing that he's one of the more elite pass rushers in football right now. And when he's off and that defense can't get off the field, they can't keep the opponent from scoring. It shows on the offense because Green Bay's offensive line isn't anything that great either. And if they're going 3-and-out every drive and Rodgers is getting pummeled against a good team like Tampa Bay, the defense is going to get tired really quick. I think that's just basic football 101 right there. If your offense can't stay out on the field long enough to give your defense rest, it's going to show. Your defense is going to get tired, especially against the high-powered offense like Tampa Bay. So I think that's something that Green Bay really needs to improve because I think the weapons that Rodgers has around him, I can't really blame it on the weapons right now because you still have Devontae Adams, you still have Aaron Jones, who is both a threat in the running in the backfield and in the receiving aspect of it. Guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling have been very serviceable to Rodgers. I'm sure there's a couple of guys that I really can't name right now, but I can't blame it on the weapons anymore. It's got to be this offensive line that can't protect Rodgers, give him enough time, or even
especially with
give.
Bakhtiari going down.
Yeah, that's a huge blow. I think he's on the left side, so Rodgers a right-handed quarterback. You can't protect that blind side, like you learned in the movie. Great movie, by the way. But that's really going to be the downfall of the Packers this year.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing I want to add, like people need to stop. Like I said I mentioned it earlier, but people need to stop overreacting and thinking Rodgers. The recency bias after this game is crazy. I mean, there's people that are already jumping off and saying Rodgers is back to his normal, his last year's self with mediocre, nothing special, no MVP push. I mean,
one game.
And the guy was probably second or third behind Mahomes and Russell Wilson for MVP race before this game. I mean, to say one game against a top defense is automatically.
He can easily bounce back, man.
Yeah, exactly, and I think he will. Yeah. I mean,
they play Houston this week. Just watch.
And that's a perfect game for him to bounce back. I mean, it's not a shitty defense, but it's definitely not elite. So, I mean, I think this will be a game that'll kind of put Rodgers where he belongs. If he dots him up and rips him by 20 points and throws for 250 and 3 touchdowns, I mean, there's no doubt he's still a top 5 quarterback in the league. But, if he does put up another dud, then there's a little bit of question of like, can he still compete with the Russell Wilsons, the Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons? But the Packers have looked really good, and they lost against a good team. I mean, it's not like they lost against some the Jaguars or something. They lost against a really formidable team in the Bucs. So I think the overreactions that are happening right now on both sides, honestly, are a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there, Jordan. Like at the end of the day, I'm sure other MVP candidates are gonna have games where it's just simply not their day. It happens to everybody. It's happened to Tom Brady in his past MVP campaigns. I'm sure Russell Wilson will also have a game like that this season. Happens to Mahomes, happens to everybody, Lamar Jackson. Nothing to really write home about there. It's just an off game for the Packers, and maybe they'll make a move to improve their team a little bit, but I'm not like writing them off totally yet.
Yeah.
Jumping back to the other side, the AFC. 2 straight losses for the Buffalo Bills, who are a team that guy like Josh Allen people had as the MVP, the dark horse in the MVP race, and he's really starting to show his true colors against Tennessee in week 5, getting absolutely mauled by them, and this week against Kansas City. I forget what the score was, but it was definitely
like 26-17. It wasn't really close. It
was close on paper, but Buffalo really didn't look all that great, and everyone's saying they're the pretenders of the AFC. They're the imposter. Josh Allen's the imposter, the MVP.
He's the imposter among us.
He is. He really is. I don't think there's a really big argument about that because you can't say Aaron Rodgers is the imposter after one game. Josh Allen hasn't played great for 2 games, so just let that.
The thing with Buffalo is like everybody knows their defense has not been phenomenal this season, but against the better teams that they've played, it's been their offense that has come up sputtering. And we all know that Tennessee and Kansas City aren't really top-rate defenses. They're good. I'd say that Tennessee this season, their defense really isn't like anything great. Kansas City's is probably a little better, but Josh Allen specifically has come up short in their 2 losses the past 2 weeks. So in order to prove they're a serious contender, serious playoff contender, they're going to have to go toe-to-toe with some of these top dogs in the league, like Seattle. I'm sure that I don't know if they play Seattle at some point. I know we did, so they probably do as well. But he's got to be able to show up in those games. You can't be coming up shorthanded with guys like Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, some other like serviceable weapons. You can't really be doing that if you want to be considered a serious contender.
Stephon Diggs is having a phenomenal year, by the way. I'm just gonna
He
let that
is.
be known. He's finally got a quarterback that can dot him up and get him the ball, get him open. I think Buffalo's a good fit for him, but I want to stay on the topic of Pat, of what Pat said about Buffalo. Their defense isn't what everyone expected it to be this year. The offense is starting to struggle against some subpar defenses. Not that they're not great. No, they're not great, but they're good, not great. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like Kansas City. So, do you think it's time for Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills hit the panic button?
I don't know. I mean, I
Emergency
think it's more
meeting.
of
Who's the imposter?
emergency meeting. I think it's really something that can be solved with some internal conversation. I think it's nothing that like Sean McDermott's. I almost said Josh McDermott. Sean McDermott is a good coach. I think he's one of the better coaches in our league today. He's really turned around that Buffalo Bills franchise. But it's something. I think it's a confidence thing with Josh Allen. I think it's growing pains. I think he's only in his third year, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And he's still getting down his accuracy and everything. I think he's getting down his poise. The play calling could be a little better. I remember one play specifically, they ran a read option and it just went like terribly. So they need to adjust some things there. I think some guys like Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, they need to get the running game going a little bit. I don't think they need to hit the panic button necessarily just because you lose to a good team. Like, this is the reigning Super Bowl champion we're talking about. Just because you lose to a top-tier team doesn't mean that you have to go freaking out, making all these extra moves. I think a move defensively wouldn't hurt, but at the same time, I don't think it's anything that this team can't overcome and solve internally.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, you'd like to think that their defense will eventually figure it out. I mean, that's the one thing that I'm looking at is like they started the season off arguably the hottest team, maybe behind the Seahawks in the league. And that was with their defense not playing that well. I mean, if you look back at the numbers, they really outscoring the other team. It was no big defensive stops or holding them to under 10 points.
Defense has been their anchor, too, the past 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you think, if this defense plays, half as good as they did last year, this team may be undefeated. Who knows?
Right.
So I don't think they're pretenders. I think, to me, they are still the easy favorite to win the East right now. And I say that as a Pats fan. I don't think the Patriots are going to have enough to push past them. To stay on the Bills Chiefs game, I just want to mention I think the Chiefs have once again cemented themselves to the top of the AFC. Mahomes, there's a little bit of questioning. I feel like in the middle part against us, at least after that game, people were like, "Well, they didn't look that good against the Patriots. They kind of snuck out with Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer at quarterback." But they've reversed. Yeah, and they reversed that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked very good last game, and now the addition of Le'Veon Bell, whether that throws a wrench in the running game because now you don't know who you want to go with. I mean, I don't think it will, but that can sometimes happen where who knows what happens with the running game. But the talent of Le'Veon Bell added to that team. I mean, there's no doubt that they have the most talent on the offensive side, and their defense, contrary to the Bills, has looked great when everyone thought it was going to look bad. So they're a scary team, and we'll see. I think they come out as the 1 seed in the AFC at least.
Yeah, I gotta agree with. Go ahead, Pat.
Oh, I know we're gonna get into top dogs in the AFC.
We'll do it now. Might as well.
Yeah.
We're already into it.
I tried to transition that, but maybe I didn't do a good job.
Good job. I caught your drift, Jordan.
We picked up. Yeah. I think it's because you look at the other possible contenders. You have the Ravens, the Bills. I mean, you have the Steelers and Titans who are playing this week. But I think the Chiefs really are the team as the reigning Super Bowl champions until one of those other top teams beats them. Who's gonna take that number one spot? They lost to the Raiders. Anthony, I know you're a big Raiders guy, but I think you'll agree that they're not contenders like the Chiefs are. So
yeah.
Okay. I think that until somebody manages to dethrone them, a very good team, I think that the Chiefs have to be the top dog because I'm not going to.
But the Raiders beat the Chiefs, so doesn't that mean they're really good?
No, he said a really good team.
I'm messing with you. Relax.
Yeah. So then by that, the Patriots are better than the Chiefs. I think that the Chiefs just have to be called the best team in the AFC, maybe even the best team in the league, until somebody manages to dethrone them. I'm not going to take these fluky games, these regular season games, into account, like versus the Raiders. I'm sure they'll maybe lose another division game to the Chargers or Broncos. But the Bills and Ravens have just shown that they're not capable of defeating Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes yet. So I think it has to be them. And there's no if, and, or but about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you guys.
Raiders.
I'm gonna agree with you guys. The Chiefs to the top dog in the AFC, perhaps the NFL could. I think they're favorites to go back to back this year. I think Mahomes has the talent around him, especially with the addition of Le'Veon Bell. And I kind of want to piggyback off of what Jordan said. Oh, who's gonna get the carries? I don't care. It doesn't really matter, you know.
Yeah.
I don't care. Where's Graham when you need him? He left the call, by the way. Those listening on Spotify. But with a team like that, you get two good running backs. You get two really good running backs. You split the carries. It's going to take a few games to figure out how you're going to throw your jab, throw your right. It's going to take a few games to figure that out. But once they get that going, they're going to get that going by the playoffs. There's no if, and, or buts around it. They're going to get that 1-2 punch working by the playoffs. And you throw that on top of – you want to go ahead, Jordan?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that the only reason I brought that up to kind of throw in the wrench is because I think last year – I don't know if Damian Williams 2 years ago at the end of the season when Kareem Hunt was suspended,
doing his thing,
kind of took
kicking it.
Graham, cut it. No, but yeah, when he was on a suspension, Damian Williams kind of took over and became that lead back, and was actually like I think he tore it up and had like 300-yard games. People were thinking coming into the season, he's that guy, and I think he was either a rookie or really a rookie or a second year, and you can almost relate that to kind of how Clyde Edwards played last game. Push comes to shove, and they sign LaShawn McCoy, or trade for him, I should say, and all of a sudden Damian Williams is kind of phased out of the offense. McCoy doesn't really get started at all last year. They both are mediocre. Their run game isn't great. I know Le'Veon Bell is miles better than LaShawn McCoy was last year by far, and you could argue that CEA than Damian Williams, but it shows that sometimes even when you think you have that, you got two talented running backs, you can just run them both back and forth. If they can't get into a rhythm, who knows? Maybe they aren't the guys you think they are. But I do agree with Anthony. I think that the talent speaks for itself. I'll let you continue your point.
Yeah, and you add that scary running game on top of Patrick Mahomes, who is arguably the best quarterback in the league. If we're not looking at just stats, we could look at just pure talent. I think Mahomes is still the best, not just according to this year. I think he's the best overall. Obviously, when it comes to when it comes to accuracy and playmaking and decision making and all that stuff, Russell Wilson's up there too. Obviously, Russell Wilson I think has the edge on him this year according to stats and all that, as he's just lighting up the charts. But you throw that running game on top of Patrick Mahomes, like I mentioned, and that still I think best in the league passing game. You got Tyreek Hill, who's a top 5 receiver. Yes, he's a top 5 receiver. I changed my pick from during the summer. You got Travis Kelce.
Hold on. Who got absolutely reamed for having Tyreek Hill in the top 5? I said perhaps.
I said perhaps
a top
5 receiver.
I don't know. I remember getting ripped.
Maybe number 6. He's up there. We'll give him that. He's a top 10 receiver in football.
Okay.
And he's
thanks.
Give him 5.5.
What did he give him that? He's 5. 5.5.
5.5.
Take the under on the 5.5.
Anyways, you throw that again on top of the number 2 tight end in football, Travis Kelce. Yes, George Kittle is better than him.
Yes, he is.
Jordan's out of here.
Yep. That's fine.
Right.
I mean, whatever. God.
Yeah, and then you still got guys like Sammy Watkins. Mecole Hardman is really showing that he can be that really tough slot receiver. I think he's one of the best slot receivers in football right now. And it's the complete package of an offense. It's everything you can ask for in an offense. Obviously, you wish the defense could lean. You wish you can have a little more on the defense besides Tyrann Mathieu and Chris Jones, but it's give or take. Like the game said, a good defense is twice as much offense, and that has been the Chiefs' case for a long time now. So
and they played well. The defense has played well, surprisingly.
Yeah. Against Brian Hoyer.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I think
they played well. They genuinely played well all season. But yeah, you're right.
I think us three agree. I don't know about Graham. He's not here because he's a loser. I'm kidding. I love you, buddy. But we can all agree that the Chiefs are the top dog in the AFC. Seahawks are the top dog in the NFC. So if anybody out there wants to debate that, please feel free. Our handles are in the description. You want to come at us, please do. I welcome it. I don't know about you guys. Just don't start sending me death threats. Start sending me my address and shit like
Just
that.
don't add
Please
me on
don't.
Snap.
Whoa.
We're not there yet.
That took a turn.
Yeah, we're not there yet. All right, I've been waiting to do this all episode. Let's talk about the Patriots.
I don't want
Big,
this.
very upsetting loss this past
Shut up,
weekend,
shut up.
18-12 against the Denver Broncos. We lost to a team that only put up field goals against us. Like, it was just
Fantasy
such a,
god, Brandon McManus.
for real. It was just such a frustrating game to watch from a fan perspective.
Yep.
Just because I know how much talent you can say how much talent this team has and how much potential this team has. I mean, or because I know I believe in them a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the fact that they haven't played in 2 weeks, and this is why I really can't mark them as losers like Jordan did. They haven't played in 2 whole weeks. I don't give a shit who you are. You could be the Chiefs going against the Jets and the Chiefs have a whole COVID thing. The Jets are practicing for the next 2 weeks. The Chiefs aren't. And the Chiefs aren't going to look the same. They're going to make the Jets look, maybe that's a bit of a push. But it's still the Chiefs aren't going to look the same. And against a low bottom feeder team like Denver, it obviously showed. And Cam was obviously off with the 2 picks. And it's really going to be tough to come back down from a 2-3 record, especially with the Dolphins looking like they're clicking now. But maybe not with Tua as the starter, which I don't know why they did. I don't know why they put Tua in.
Feel bad for my man Fitz.
I mean, I don't feel bad for him because I'm not a Ryan Fitzpatrick guy, but still, he was. I think they had
Fitzmagic guy.
I think they had the best chance of winning with Fitzpatrick. Maybe it's a push. They could have made a push for the playoffs. Not saying they could have gotten in, but they could have been competitive in that wild card race.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the way the defense has been playing.
The expanded field too this year. 7 seeds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True. Yep.
And it's just tough. Like, why would you? I think Fitzpatrick's a great guy to learn under. He's been through the ringer. He knows the ins and outs of the game. So why wouldn't you have learn from him under him for a year? So, off the topic of the Dolphins, let's go back to the Pats. I still believe in this team. We play San Francisco this upcoming week, which is going to be one of the better games this week. I think it's a nationally televised game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure.
I think it's Sunday Night Football, maybe. Oh no,
it's a 4:30 game. It's in the 4:30 window.
So
but it's a game.
I think it's
It's a game over here. We're gonna have a house divided. Me going for the Pats, my brother going for the Niners. So that's always gonna be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know what you guys think going into this week. Are we freaking out, or are we a little more confident that this team is going to be back practicing again and just working out the kinks?
The one thing I wanted to the way I would justify my loser pick for them is because I agree with you that their 2 weeks off or however long it was with only 2 practices or Cam Newton only being at 1 is definitely hurts them. They're not the same team. But if you look at the Broncos and how they had their quarterback coming back, they lost their best receiver. They had Von Miller go down earlier in the season. They're not even close to a playoff team in my eyes at this point in the season. That matchup becomes a lot closer, and it almost becomes kind of like a game if you're talking Patriots-Bills late in the season for the division. It's kind of like, all right, this is a good team. It's going to be a tough game, but you just got to grind it out, and these are the types of games you have to win. I felt like this was an opportunity for the Patriots to gain a game on the Bills, which evidently they did lose, and we would have been able to gain a game. And although it was going to be a tough game, they just didn't show up. I mean, this wasn't a shootout. The offense looked horrible. The defense looked horrible. I don't think they showed up. I mean, it definitely attests to that they didn't practice a lot. But when you look back in the season, if we missed the division by 1 game, you're going to look back on this game and say, if we just beat up Broncos, we'd be having, we might either have a bye or we might, be playing a lesser team, in January. But I don't know. I mean, it's you can't look ahead and say, well, we look back and say, this certain game may have, changed the outcome of the season. But I think that this is one of those games you wanted them to win, not only because they're more talented, but it was just, it was a pivotal game earlier on in the season, and that's why I would give them the loser. But I'll just say one thing about I agree with you. I think they still have a ton of potential. Healthy Cam Newton, and they're getting Uche back. I think they're going to get David Andrews back soon. Mm-hmm. I know he was at practice yesterday or today, I think. So once they get healthy, that there's an argument that they're, the second best or even third best team in the AFC, in my opinion, because of how they've competed against other squads. But yeah, this is a bounce back game. They need to win, definitely.
I'm gonna do the gramming for this. I'm gonna cut Pat off there. I'm gonna do the gramming for this episode. Not necessarily disagree with you, Jordan, but I'm gonna kind of go back at you. I think that the defense has proved that they can keep this team in games no matter what. They are the definition of bend but don't break defense with the way they allow field goals. The problem is the offense isn't clicking, and the offense was honestly clicking, not to the point where we can win a championship, but it was clicking to the point where we can compete in the playoffs. And that's what was helping us win those 2 games against Miami and Las Vegas, my other hometown team, the Raiders. But you think it's tough because you think back to the Kansas City game, and they only allowed 6 points in the first half. I mean, yeah, we've done that before, but if the offense was clicking, we're easily leading that game at halftime. 100%. If the mistakes weren't there, we're leading that game at halftime by a touchdown or maybe 10 points. But the fact that Cam Newton wasn't there, I can't discredit this team for that, just because it's something out of their control. I mean, obviously, COVID could have been prevented if they took the proper precautions, but it's something that at that point it's not in their control. So I really can't knock them for that, because I think this defense is still one of the most elite in the league, for that matter. And it showed Sunday. I mean, 18 points. I mean, it could have been a little better if they got a few stops, maybe held them to 12 or 15. I don't know. But
I can't agree with you on that. I think I agree with you that the defense has been good all season. I think that there's question marks coming into the season with the loss of, Van Noy, Collins, all the, the front seven was the big question mark. Secondary was, it is what it is. But I think they played well. But I don't agree with that they played well last game. I know that holding teams to field goals is a win in many eyes, and many times that if you hold the team to the field goal, you're keeping your offense in the game. But when you do it 5 or 6 times, to me, you're letting the offense just drive down the field on you every single possession. Mm-hmm. To not throw a punt in there every once in a while, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, well, they theoretically just scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal on you in a game. Is that good defensive play? I mean, I wouldn't consider that an elite or good defensive play, and especially when it happens 5 times where they're driving down to at least the 30 to 35 yard line, sometimes from their own 20. I mean, you're closing in on 60, 70 yards, constantly driving down the field. And especially when your offense isn't playing that well.
That's what I'm saying. This offense needs to start playing well, and that's when the defense is going to start clicking too.
But I don't think you can put the blame. I don't think you can say because the offense isn't playing well, the defense should hold no responsibility for how they played. I think Philip Lindsay eclipsing 100 yards on them is embarrassing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I think the defense didn't play up to standards in terms of when they. I will say they did step up when they needed to get stops. Drew Lock threw 2 picks in a row. I think if you want my 2 cents on the game, I think the Patriots had every single opportunity to win this game. And I blame the offense wholeheartedly. You can't put up 12 points on a team like Denver. They're a good defense, but at the end of the day, you went toe-to-toe with the Seattle Seahawks, who are currently the best team in the league. So you should be able to go toe-to-toe, or actually you should be able to annihilate this Denver team that is among the more banged up in the league. They're without their defensive leader in Von Miller. Drew Lock is just coming back off of an injury, a leg injury. There's no reason why, if your defense only lets up 18 points, you shouldn't be able to go down the field and at least get them 3 touchdowns. And that in the fourth quarter, when they went for the 2-point conversion instead of kicking the extra point, that just didn't make any sense either. You should have just taken the extra point and saved the 2-point conversion for later in the game, because at that point it was still a 2-possession game. But even after that, they had the opportunity to win the game with just a touchdown. So this game really showed me that Patriots need to, if they want to be a serious contender or playoff threat, they need to make a move for a guy who can stretch the field, a guy who you can rely on to get open. Maybe that's Julio Jones. Maybe it's somebody as simple as
Beckham Jr.
Yeah, sure. Maybe it's a guy like David Njoku. Maybe it's just a trade you can make, trade a 3rd or 4th rounder, 2nd rounder maybe.
John Ross is that name.
John Ross is not good at football. He is injury prone. I don't like that move at all. But that's just me.
But if it takes a 7th rounder, I might do
it. Right, but if it's a 7th rounder, yeah, sure, you'll take it. I'm sure Belichick can figure something out. But
yeah.
Edelman has looked, he's definitely banged up with him. He hasn't looked good at all. N'Keal Harry hasn't really taken a step. Jameer Byrd just, you can't rely on him to get you yards on offense when he needs to get open. So, and please get Ryan Izzo off the field. He's not good.
Yeah.
Ryan Izzo's been in the system for 4 years
Talk
now.
About
He really
losing us the game. That fumble. God damn.
Yeah. And Cam Newton, I mean, you got to give him some of the blame, but at the same time, he can't do everything himself. He's only throwing the ball. It's not his fault if the receivers drop it. So this offense.
But according to Giselle, the quarterback should be able to throw and catch the football. So.
Yeah. Oh, is that what you said? Yoko Ono, you mean? I don't like Giselle. That's just me. Anyway, though, yeah, I'm just, the Patriots have to make a move. David Andrews coming back is going to help, but at the same time, David Andrews isn't going to go down there and catch the ball for you. So you gotta do something. The defense, I think, is fine. I'm not really worried about it. It's just the offense needs to get its head out of its ass. McDaniels needs to stop trying HB draws and screens on 3rd downs. I don't know why he's been doing it. He's been doing it for years. It's never
literally the wild card game from last year.
It's the most frustrating thing to watch.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
The offense just needs to step it up, plain and simple.
If Josh McDaniels is going to take over this team when Bill Belichick retires, as of right now, I'm scared, just because of the way. That's true as well. But if we're done talking about the Pats, I'm just going to finish off on saying about them. It's going to be a tough game this Sunday just because I think it's a must-win for both teams. The Niners are sitting 3-3 right now. Patriots are 2-3. The Dolphins look somewhat decent right now. I'm not sure who they play this week. Let's just take a look real quick.
They play not the Rams. Never mind. They play the Chargers.
No, I think they might be on a bye this week.
They're on a bye.
They're on a bye, so it doesn't help for a Pats loss. Fall to 2-4, sit at 3rd in the division. Or at least we'll lock up 3rd in the division because the Jets are currently at the bottom.
Win a game.
They're not winning a game.
Dolphins are on a bye this week.
Dolphins are on a bye, I believe.
Damn.
Yeah, and the Niners are in, I think, the toughest division in football. So any win across the board for them is really going to help boost their playoff hopes and potential. So
Jimmy G's return to New England.
That's right.
Storyline of the week.
I was really hoping it would be a Brady versus Garoppolo type of thing in New England, but I guess that's never going to happen. My dreams have been shattered. So that's really all we have for today. If you guys want to add anything else.
Closing thoughts. I want to say my game of the week will be the Steelers and the Titans. Heavyweight showdown, the only 2 undefeated teams in the AFC, the only undefeated teams outside of the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Steelers are really legit. I think their defense is probably the best defense in football, bar none. I think their offense is good enough to get by. They haven't played a ton of good teams yet. But then again, the Titans have played some good teams, but they've also had a shaky defense at times. I think the Steelers really don't have a glaring weakness as a team right now. So I think that's the game of the week. Definitely look out for that. I believe it's a 4:00 game next week. So that's all I got.
I'm going to actually go with the Monday night game. I'm going to go Chicago, LA. I feel like this is a game that many people won't look at it and say, like, wow, look at I'm going to sit down and watch this one. But I think this is a make it or break it for
By both many, you mean any.
I feel like this is kind of like for the Rams coming off their loss. A lot of people have been doubting them the whole season. Can Jared Goff keep it up? Can, their defense keep it up? Can beat the Bears, atop the, NFC North. Kind of proves that they can beat, one of the better teams in the league right now. And for the Bears, there's a lot of question marks around them too as well, with people still doubting them, even though they're, tearing up the league.
If the Bears win, like, people have been doubting them every week. If the Bears win, it's just like, I don't know what to do. I got to shrug because there's really not one area that they've been fantastic in, but they've been able to win football games. Yeah, and Matt Nagy's going to be up for Coach of the Year if he keeps this up.
Exactly. So I feel like that's, I don't know. Pat kind of took the best one, so I was kind of scrambling after he said Pittsburgh, Tennessee.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, I guess another one would be Cleveland, Cincy, maybe. I mean, I think that one could be decent. That could kind of be a shootout, I think, with between Burrow and Baker Mayfield. Anthony's shrugging over there, but I'd like to hear his game of the week, considering the ones I'm looking at are shit.
Because I think there's 2 others that are better than that. I think Seattle and Arizona could be fun, just because
Seattle's
that's a
gonna
divisional game.
destroy
And
them.
I
the
guess.
way
No, it's a good game. It'll be good.
Yeah, where's the other one though?
and this is the week where my Raiders
here we
prove
go.
that they're gonna go in on Sunday night and they're gonna pick up a win against the Buccaneers.
Wow.
I think
Okay.
it's possible.
Hey, they beat the Saints. Maybe they got the NFC South numbers. Oh, who predicted that one? Oh, it was me. Oh, wow. I guess I'm just some.
Jordan, you said
Who's
Chicago
the
and the
top of
Rams. You
Yeah, I
said
did.
Chicago and LA, and I
Huh?
agreed with you there. You had me in the first half. I'm not gonna lie, and then you
Cleveland,
went on.
Cincy.
Then you went on with that
Cleveland.
Cleveland Cincy bullshit. I think
All
I
right,
just
when Cincy upsets the Browns and turns the Browns into those pretenders you're talking about, come back to me, all right?
I'm not saying
did lose
it's
this
gonna
past
I'm not saying
weekend,
it's not gonna be a good game. I'm just saying that I think there's better. I think there's much better this week.
I think
It's
there
a
are
division
2
game,
or
though.
3 games that you could say are better. Pat took one of them,
I
and
think the
then
best
I
game.
guess
I think
the
that's
other-
the best game though. Pat
easily,
took the
yeah.
best game.
Yeah.
But I actually have 2 other things I want to close on. When we were going through our winners and losers, we all had this. I think I had the same things written down as you, except for one. For one of my losers, I had Kirk Cousins, just because of the fact
Kirk
that he's been
Cousins
playing.
cannot win football games.
He's been shit this year. He had 3 touchdowns, yeah, but he had 3 interceptions against the Falcons, who are an absolute dumpster fire of a team right now, especially with the whole COVID thing. Yeah, we thought, oh, Deshaun Watson's gonna help the winless Texans get their first win against the Jaguars. Yeah, no fucking shot. I didn't think the Falcons were gonna do it this week, but yeah, they put up 40 points against the
Matt
Vikings.
Ryan had a good week.
He did have a good week. But I thought the Vikings had a little bit more fight in them.
I did. I think. Did we all pick the Vikings? Jordan, did you pick the Vikings?
Yeah, I definitely did.
I think
I
we
did
all.
too.
I think we went Vikings across the board, and I think at
Yeah.
this point, after the season, I think Kirk Cousins' job is in jeopardy.
Mhm.
And I always one last thing, and then I promise you guys I'm done. You don't got to listen to me anymore. But I think ever since we started this podcast, I've always alluded to this MVP of the last 5 years. If
Mhm.
Russell Wilson wins it this year, and he's the guy I've been saying should win the MVP of the last 5 years. Russell Wilson wins it this year, right? Aaron Donald
Yeah.
should get that MVP for the last 5 years. Just because his numbers have been fucking monstrous with the way he's been able to
It's
handle
interesting as a
double.
defensive guy. I will say.
Exactly. I think we haven't seen a defensive MVP since Lawrence Taylor.
Probably.
And I think Aaron Donald is honestly deserving of it if you look at the stats, especially against double and triple teams. He's still able to make noise. He's still able to disrupt the play
Mhm.
against triple and double teams. That just shows you how much of a freak of nature he is.
Mhm.
And I've always been a big Aaron Donald fan. He doesn't get enough respect just because he plays defense. So I think it's finally time he gets the respect he deserves. So maybe an MVP one year. He deserves some sort of honor.
Stay on that Aaron Donald talk. Tua Tagovailoa, who is going to be the
Aaron
starter,
Donald is licking his chops right now.
is going to come into, I don't know if the game's in LA, but he's going to come into Aaron Donald firsthand. He's going to get to experience that because he faces them the week after their bye.
I think
I don't
that's going to
know.
be his welcome to the NFL moment against Aaron Donald of all people. Could
it
end his
really
career.
is.
I don't know. He might
Yeah.
quit right then and there.
I mean,
I
I
would.
question that decision, and that's even more questionable to be like, all right, Tua, like your first game, you're going to face the best defensive, player since J.J. Watt. Good luck. I mean, I don't.
That's almost that's almost as stupid of a decision as the football team putting Alex Smith against Aaron Donald in his first game back since.
But they didn't even have a choice though. They had no quarterbacks left.
Yeah, that's true, but I would put someone else in
Put
at that
anyone
point.
else
I wouldn't risk Alex Smith's life again
Yeah.
against Aaron Donald's.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, Aaron Donald is a beast of a human being. He should be feared by millions. So we're gonna end it on that note. Season 2, episode 8. We're missing Graham this week. We should have him back next
Hopefully
week.
get
I don't
the
know.
cast sometime soon. but
I don't
who
know.
knows?
At this pace, Jordan's gonna have a shit ton of work to do next week, and he'll be gone. So it's just gonna be
I'm
me,
gonna make
Pat,
an effort to never miss an episode now because I'm the only one left.
Yeah,
All right, yeah.
Jordan's consistent.
at New Guy Survivor. We just want to
Eli
thank you.
Manning.
Okay, yeah, you could have left that. All right.
We're just trying to grow here every week, and you guys are really helping us do that by supporting. Keep it up. Y'all are doing a good job. We appreciate it. And we'll come back to you with some more funny content, funny debates next week. We'll see you all
Yes, sir.
when we see you all.
Peace out.